Okay, first off, I just wanted to preface this by saying to take every answer in here with a grain of salt. Shouldn't be taken as gospel. These are only based off of my own experience and my own journey through the culinary industry. If you are in the brigade and you have more experience or you have something to add, leave it down below and we can all grow together. That's the whole concept of this channel. So with that out of the way, let's just get into the questions. Question: when cooking a ribeye steak on a gas... Okay, so basically he wants to know if you should put a weight on the steak when cooking it because he thinks it dries the steak out and flattens it. So generally speaking, I will not use weights. I have used them every once in a great while on something really thick, just at the start of the cooking process.
In the video, I said that I've used them, but what I really meant to say is that I've used them in the past. Now, I never use weights. At most, what I will do is reverse sear something, if it is like ultra mega thick, but otherwise, I just allow the natural cooking process to take place.
And then we'll usually finish a thick steak like that in the oven. If you are behind on tickets or you're doing like a refire or something like that, at that point, it just comes to accountability and accepting that you are behind because of a mistake you made and just taking ownership over that and allowing the cooking process to take place naturally and making sure that the guest has something awesome. For anybody new in the brigade that doesn't know what he's talking about, there are these things that, you know, sometimes they call them bacon weights or just whatever, but generally they're a kind of weight. Here's a picture of it. Now, this weight will be used a lot of the times for bacon or sometimes burgers to smush them down on the grill during the cooking process. I don't believe that they should be used for steaks, but people will use them very frequently and often. They will use them on steaks. And what you will probably notice is this wooden handle right here is usually missing because after it spends a lot of time on the grill, there's actually these metal pieces inside holding that wood together. And the metal pieces will heat up and slowly kind of burn a hole in that wood, and the screws will ping and pop out. And so that's why you see them a lot of times. They'll have like a wire or something to pick them up by, or it'll just be completely missing. So next question: do you prefer paper tickets or electronic tickets? I have used both types, and I feel having tickets on a computer is more efficient, but I've only cooked for a year, so what's your take? For new cooks, there are 3 buckets of the way that orders are handled in a restaurant. These are handwritten tickets, chip printers, CHIT printers, and KDS systems. All 3 of these have their benefits and their drawbacks. The handwritten system is pretty much the worst one you could possibly get, though. The only benefit about that, though, is you don't have to worry about any kind of system crashes, power outage, or anything like that. But the drawback is that every single server will use a different kind of shorthand, so you either have to get them all on the same page of which shorthand to use, or learn how to read every single server shorthand. And the reason why a server will use shorthand is that way they can keep up with the orders. So if somebody orders like a steak with green beans and mashed potatoes and Dr. Pepper, they might put DP, RS for ribeye steak, mash, and then GB for green beans. So that way they don't have to write out everything, and they can get the whole order for everybody on the table all at once. But other servers might have a completely different system for that same thing. Chip printers are something that I've used for most of the cooking career. I have used KDS systems too. I'll talk about those in just a second. Chip printers and dupes are really awesome in their own way. Much better than handwritten tickets, not quite as good as a KDS. But there are a lot of benefits to using a chip printer system. There's a lot of things that you can do as far as like being able to type custom things in there. You can even have printers that will only print off. Like if you have a saute, a grill, and a salad, only salad things will print off on, you know, printer 1, and printer 3 will only print off grill items, etc. Well, then the expo will get a ticket that has everything on it. Then they can coordinate everything. You'll have 2 printers. There'll be one for inner and one for outer expo, or it'll just be one printer with a dupe on it. So then like you'll get the main copy, they'll get the yellow copy, and then you guys coordinate your communication and stuff like that. Now the drawbacks of these, obviously, if the printers like go out, that's whatever, that's going to happen here and there. Then you got to switch to handwritten tickets. The other drawback is that because it's a physical copy, there is always a chance that it could fall off the rail, or that somebody could hold the ticket and be screwing around, or they could pull a ticket before it's done and throw it in the trash, or something could happen to that ticket, or the tickets on the rail can get mixed up. So table 1 and table 3 get turned around, and then that confuses outer and inner expo. So it's that is a main drawback of physical copies. KDS systems are actually my favorite. I haven't used them for as long of a period of time, but I have used them enough to know that I think that they're totally badass. As soon as the table orders, it's on the system. The cooks can see it immediately. Food comes out faster. The server doesn't have to run back and forth and type shit. They can just get the orders, and they can run their drinks, do their, they can get orders for the next table or get dessert or whatever it is that they're going to do. KDS systems have all of the benefit of the chip printer, but none of really the drawbacks. You can even program it to where the digital tickets, so to speak, will turn colors as it hits certain time thresholds. And a manager can look at the tablet in their own system and see how long all of the orders taken. And they can even go back like 2 weeks or a month and look at like old orders, like with some of these KDS systems. Only drawback of this system is if the system crashes, you're fucked. You got to switch to one of the other two if you even have a backup. So what's good to do is to have kind of like a shorthand that you can fall back on so people can use handwritten tickets if there is a system crash, just to have that. It's better to need it and not have it than to have it and not need it. So have a backup for your KDS system, but otherwise use a KDS system. They used to be really expensive, but now you can really just get like cheap ass Android tablets, and then you can pay for the KDS app, and that's it. You're done. What kind of places do you recommend for a first-time kitchen worker? If you were asking 17-year-old me, knowing what I know now, what I would do to get started cooking, what I would say is find the best restaurant that you can work at. Go to that restaurant and apply there. And get any position you can. Become a busser. Any back of house position you can. Become a commie chef. Become a busser, become a porter, become a dishwasher, become literally anything in there, and make sure that during the interview process you make it known that eventually you do want to become a line cook, that you're passionate about this, but you're willing to take the shit job for now. Don't say shit job, but you're willing to take the shit job for now until you eventually move into the line cook position, right? Find the best place you can, because there's a lot of experience that I'm learning now that I wish I had learned back then, but I didn't learn because I started out working fast food and I went into other, I did like mom and pop places, and I did like fast casual and stuff like that. So I spent the first like 5 or 6 years working in like gaining experience, but not what I would call like the best quality of experience. So there are people that are younger than me that know a lot more than me about some of the plating styles and fancier cuisine and stuff like that. If they won't hire you, then go a little like one step lower and one step lower and one step lower. So start out at like the best restaurant in town, the second best, third best, then like if you can't find anything there, then Applebee's, and then fast food underneath that. When you decide to hire a manager for your restaurant, what are things on their resume that you look for that stand out? I have only ever had to hire for kitchen leads and sous chefs, so I'm not coming at this from the position of a GM or an owner. I'm coming at this as an exec looking for a sous or looking for a kitchen lead, etc. Fuck resumes. I say fuck resumes because it's way too easy to lie on a resume. You can get ChatGPT to write your cover letter. Like it's a bunch of bullshit. They're putting their best foot forward, but sometimes that best foot is a fake ass foot, right? What I will do when I get a resume is I will glance over it just to get a general idea of like work experience and stuff like that. And then I won't even worry about the cover letter. I'll get their contact information, set up a time for an interview. I may have them do a stage, but I will ask them situational questions, and these questions will vary. Sometimes I may base it off of something I saw on their resume, but I usually will ask them things about their hospitality mindset, leadership abilities, how they delegate tasks, the empathy that they have for the guest and for the staff, and how they handle interpersonal conflict. So this is just me personally, but if I had 2 candidates to pick from for sous chef, and one of them was extremely passionate about cooking, but they didn't have experience as a sous chef, and the other person was a sous chef, but they suck ass and they're just a shitty person, and they treat people like shit, they have an attitude, really arrogant and stuff like that, I would rather take the time to train this person that has no experience but is passionate, train them to be a cook, get them to get a handle on how to do order and stuff, and turn them into a sous chef, rather than hire this asshole that has 10 years of experience that I could just throw out there and he would just know everything, how to do it all. The restaurant will take a huge hit from toxic ass managers and people that treat staff and treat guests like crap. It will take a major hit from that, way more than it would for me to just do a little extra work for a little extra time and have somebody working with me that's extremely passionate about the job and that's going to love the restaurant the way that I do, or at least similar. What are things that you've learned by being around pastry chefs? So I haven't been around a lot of pastry chefs. The only pastry chef I was around was working in a family-style restaurant as a baker part-time because he was actually retired. He knew a lot. Before he worked in a hotel that was really upscale, and like the president would come by and stay there, and like celebrities, and it was like, you know, he had all these stories and stuff. He would bring desserts up to the Secret Service while they were on the roof, and he's actually the one that gave me the book that started me on my like becoming like a real cook, like learning all of that stuff. He facilitated that. But as far as like being around pastry chefs, I don't really have a lot of experience when it comes to that kind of thing. So if there's anybody in the brigade that has a lot more experience being around pastry chefs, or you are a pastry chef, leave a comment down below and talk about your experience or what it's like being around them, things you learned, etc. How often do workplace accidents happen? For any new cooks in the brigade that are watching this, there are 3 main types of accidents that can occur. These are slips, burns, and cuts. All these things suck. None of them happen with like super regularity, especially if you have non-slip shoes, you pay attention to what you're doing. But they do happen. I will say in like an entire year, I've been cut twice. One of them, my eyes glazed over as I was trimming 120 pounds of skirt steak, and I admittedly stopped paying attention, which is the number one way to avoid cuts. If you want to know more about knife safety, I have a video all about that. I'm going to leave it up here, and you can check that out if you're new and you want to know anything about that. But generally speaking, cuts don't happen often with me, but usually when they do, they're really bad. Burns happen all the time. Usually it's like little stuff. It can be something as little as like oil splashing up from something, or, you know, a pan that was extra hot. I mean, like, I get little burns and stuff here and there. Like this one right here came from, I believe, the oven door. It was open. I was pulling a pan out, and something like it started to close a little bit as I turned, and it fucking got me on the arm. You know, little shit like that. It's not like big, massive, horrible burns. Like sometimes those really bad burns, like the really awful ones, are like once in a lifetime kind of burns. You know, slips, burns, and cuts, they happen. They're just like any other workplace that works around like a construction site. There's risks, there's hazards. I can't sit here and quantify an exact number. I can't sit here and say like there are about 6 accidents that happen every year. It depends on the experience level. Less experienced cooks, it depends on knife sharpness. It depends on how they've been trained, the type of safety measures that are in, like if there are PPE to go over your eyes, or cut gloves, chainmail gloves for slicers, cut gloves if you're cutting meat, various different things like that. So it really depends on where you go. What kind of menu items would you recommend staying away from as a guest? So I don't want to put any specific restaurant on blast for this. Generally speaking, specials that are specials at the beginning of the week are probably the most dangerous, especially if they're fish and shellfish, because we'll usually get a truck in on Thursday, and then we won't get a truck in Friday or Saturday or Sunday. And the reason why mainly is because Friday and Saturday are super busy. So we want to have all of the stuff that we need in on Thursday and put away ready for the weekend. But that means that when Monday comes around, most of that stuff is at least 4 days old, but some of that could even be a little bit older. And you could go to some really shady ass restaurants that will try to use food that, like, well, it's only expired by a day, and they try to use it anyway, and they put it into like a soup or something like that. So generally speaking there, but sometimes specials that's not what specials are. Sometimes we order something for a meal and we get the wrong item in. And so we just have a bunch of stuff that we can't use for our normal menu items, so we make a special out of it. So take that with a grain of salt. And the only other thing I would say, rather than a specific menu item, is when you go to a new restaurant, go to the bathroom and look at the bathroom. If the bathroom is dirty, run. Get the fuck out of that restaurant, because if they can't even take care of the space where the guest can see, they are not taking care of the kitchen at all. They don't give a fuck. You're going to get sick. Like, maybe not that day, but if you go there regularly in this place that has a nasty, shitty bathroom, literally shitty bathroom, you're probably going to end up getting sick. Do chefs always want to be chefs like when they're younger, or do they just kind of fall into it? So for me, it was kind of both. So the very first time that I saw cooks, I started out as a dishwasher. I was probably around 15, I want to say. It was within this like 14 to 16 period. I don't think it was 14. I'm pretty sure I was 15 years old when I first started as a dishwasher. I sucked ass at my job. I was lazy. I didn't give a fuck. You know, I was a teenager, you know, whatever. Teenagers suck. They don't know how to work. You have to be taught work ethic as time goes on. And some don't, but I did. But I remember washing dishes, and it was just an easy job that, you know, a minor could get. And I remember like a Sunday service, and I was washing dishes. I saw these cooks that they just looked like they were 8 feet tall fucking gods on the cook line. And they were just slinging food around, moving like crazy, going super fast. Like I could barely keep track. It was like you ever watch one of those animes and they're like, my eyes cannot keep up with their movements. And you just see like bang, bang, bang while they're fighting. It was like, that's what it felt like to me watching these people cook on the line. And they would get done, and then they tore the line apart and scrubbed it, and it was just like, it was amazing. Like, I loved seeing that. That was incredible. And these people have no idea what kind of impact they had on me as a little piddly-ass, lazy 15-year-old dishwasher. Now, I didn't cook on the line for a while, up until I was about 19 years old, little into being 19, I think closer to 20. I started as a dishwasher at another place later on, and people gave me shit all the time. Like, why don't you get a real job? You should have stayed in high school. You know, you're going to be a loser. Like, just catching shit. I had been homeless for like 6 months prior to that. And it was just this like awful, like I was in a really bad place at the time, even being like a 19-year-old. And I started to realize, I saw somewhere, it may have been YouTube. I wish I could give the exact reference, but I saw somewhere where they said, if you aren't uncomfortable, then you're doing it wrong. Like, and they don't literally mean that you should intentionally make yourself uncomfortable and like put rocks in your shoes and shit. But what they meant was like, if you're at a job and you're super comfortable and you think it's easy and you're just kind of coasting along, you aren't getting anywhere with your life. You want to be outside of your comfort zone a little bit. You want to do something that kind of scares you a little bit. Am I capable of doing this? Can I really do this? And I was thinking about this, and I remember seeing the cooks back when I was, you know, it would have only been like 3 years prior or whatever. I might have my years slightly off, but whatever. You get the fucking point. I remember seeing those, and I remember that sticking in my memory, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to fucking go for it. And I went to the kitchen manager, and I was like, hey, next time there's a job opening for a line cook, I want to be considered for that position. I was probably less articulate than that, but he said okay, and a few weeks went by, and one day he stopped me on a busy Saturday night. Apparently somebody walked off, and they're like, hey, are you still interested in being a cook? And I thought about it for a second. I was like, yeah, let's fucking do it, you know? And on Monday, I started working graves, and then I stayed as a grave cook for the first 4 years. So, you know, it was... I learned so much, and then I met Richard, and he gave me that book about cooking professionally, and then I built my experience up from there. And I started out not really giving a shit and not really caring too much about the job. And I was kind of lazy, kind of half-assed. And as time went on, I started to develop a passion for food. I realized that I could treat the food like it was artwork. And I started realizing that people used all of their senses when they're taking this in, you know, and you get to make something for someone that they truly enjoy, and they can enjoy looking at it and tasting it and smelling it, and like, you know, the mouthfeel and just all of the elements that go into it. And I started realizing that the people that worked with me kind of didn't really have that. They kind of just looked at cooking as just this thing they were doing until they got to where they were really going. This was a stepping stone to something else. So some people don't have the passion. They don't give a fuck about the job. But a lot of people that are watching my content, they do care. The brigade does care. They want something else out of this besides just a job, and that's really the whole goal of this channel is I want to uplift people and get people and I want them to use my channel as a springboard into something better and become something awesome. Go to the recipe channels on YouTube, learn how to cook, come here, learn how to advance your career in the kitchen and get better and grow as a chef. If you want more content like that, I have a Restaurants Basics playlist that should be showing up right about now. I have other tools and stuff. I read all the comments, so if you have comments or anything in the future or any other questions, leave them down below. But I hope some of these answers found you well. I hope you found them useful, and I want you guys to succeed and become awesome. And I hope that you have an awesome day, and I will see you on the next one. Peace.